It is another edition of Mile High Hockey. He's Mike Evans. I'm Will Peterson. And Mike, it is a big one. Yeah. Why did the Colorado Avalanche trade Alexandar Georgiev on Monday? I hate to say nightmare, but it was kind of a nightmare, Mike. Our nightmare with Georgie is over.
Well, they had to. They had to make this trade. I'll give you a couple of stats as to why. The Avalanche were top 10. This is good top 10. Top 10 in the NHL in fewest scoring chances allowed, fewest shots allowed. Their goaltending save percentage, second worst in the NHL. So they weren't giving up a lot of shots. They weren't giving up a lot of primo scoring opportunities. But despite that, their goalies still were not coming up with the saves. So they had to make a move, and this was the move they made.
Well, and it's interesting because just 11 days ago, Mike, this goaltending room was Alexandar Georgiev and Justus Ananen. Yep. In 11 days, Chris MacFarland and Joe Sakic have totally remade it. Out goes Ananen for Scott Wedgwood, who's looked pretty good. And then yesterday was the biggie. Georgiev for Mackenzie Blackwood from the San Jose Sharks. Listen, people are going to run to the stats. Blackwood's stats are fine. They're not great. He was on a really bad Sharks team. Yep. And the more I dove into Mackenzie Blackwood, the more I'm encouraged about giving this guy a chance. Now, he's never played more than 50 games in a season, so they're really showing him, we believe in you to be a number one goaltender.
Well, I don't know how much of it is belief and how much of it is we have no other choice, okay? So this was a good move, okay? Let me just say, this was a good move because it was the move they had to make. They just could not move forward with Georgiev. So of all the moves that they could make, this was the best one out there. Is he a better goaltender right now than Georgiev? Yes. So is it an upgrade? Yes. But I think that the upgrade comes with a certain ceiling that keeps at least me from saying, wow, what a home run move. It's a good move. It's a move that had to be made. But as far as, okay, for a team that is in a Stanley Cup or bust window, is this the guy to take you across the finish line? Man, that's a big leap. The guy's never played a playoff game.
Right.
He's never played in a playoff game. And this follows the trend of how the Avalanche have tried to go about figuring out their goaltending position for several years now. This goes back to Semyon Varlamov, Philip Grubauer, Darcy Kemper, Alexandar Georgiev, and now with Mackenzie Blackwood. It's taking a guy that hadn't exactly yet established himself as a dude, as the man, and hoping that bring him into our environment, bring him into our situation, bring him into our team, and he'll go to that next level. Well, that formula has had very mixed results going back over the last four goaltenders. Maybe the fifth time is the try, is the chance with this one.
Well, Kemper also worked. That would be my counter. That would be my counter. They did get a cup out of this formula,
yeah,
Mike.
But you got a cup with some of the worst playoff goaltending ever by a cup-winning team. So if there's an Achilles heel to this Avalanche front office, Joe Sakic, Chris MacFarland, over this wonderful run and wonderful team that they've built, here it is. They've never really figured out the goaltending position. They never have. And I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's almost like shades of that carousel that would always go around during Bronco broadcasts showing all the quarterbacks.
Right.
They've kind of had the same problem when it comes to identifying and developing and finding the answer at the goaltending position.
You know what's interesting about this, too, is you and I kicked around literally last week trade ideas. And there was some folks here at 104.3 The Fan and Denver Sports that were willing to trade a guy like Mikko Rantenen to get a top-tier goalie. You and I both shut that down. What we did say is you're going to have to attach a prospect to Georgiev to get an upgrade to a mediocre goalie. Mike, I don't know if we have crystal balls, but we saw the future because we tossed around three names. We tossed around Ross Colton, who is a little bit older, Nikolai Kovalenko, and Ivan. It is Kovalenko, the one who gets moved. 4 goals, 4 assists, 28 games. Listen, I'm around the Avs a lot. I'm around a lot of Avs beat writers. They were all so high on Kovalenko. Maybe he does develop into a star or a pretty good player. But this is what you and I tried to tell our audience last week. You were going to have to attach a prospect to Georgiev to get an upgrade in there.
You had to, and that's why this move is a good trade, okay? Even though I'm pumping the brakes on just how much of a home run move it is and what the upside is for it, I have to pump the brakes there. But it was a move that had to be made. It's a good move for a team that was in a desperate position. And I think San Jose really came away with the better end of the deal here. They got Kovalenko. They got the future second-round pick. They gave up a goaltender that's going to be a free agent. They got a goaltender that's going to be a free agent. So they get a chance to take a look at Georgiev here before they decide what they want to do. But the Avalanche, they had no choice. You are in a win-now window, a window that will only stay open for so long. You couldn't continue on with this goaltending situation and keep the room. You would completely lose the room if you did this. So is there a feeling like they kind of overpaid? Yeah, I feel that way, but they had no choice. Hopefully it works out. But there is a lot of risk in this move.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because there was a Zoom yesterday with GM Chris McFarland talking about the trade. He said three things that stuck out to me. First of all, he said this start in net sort of shook them. It kind of shook them. For a GM to admit that, I thought was interesting. The second thing was he said, we owed it to the room, sort of to your point. Like, he's just saying out loud what we're all thinking. You have McKinnon, makar, rantenen, and Chushkin, Lehkonen, Tays, Drouin, etc. You owe it to the room to get a better goaltender. And then third, he did bring up the culture, Mike. I don't think Alexandar Georgiev ever really fit into this locker room. He came in immediately after they won a Stanley Cup. Guys are looking around going, he didn't do that with us. Where's his ring? I think McFarland and Sakic knew that. I'm not saying Georgie was hated in the locker room. I'm not going to make extreme statements like that. But I think culturally it never really fit.
But you have to come back to McFarland and Sakic. They've done so much good, but let's be honest, their handling of the goaltending situation over these last several years has not been good. It has not been good. But you give them
credit for 29 games in saying this culture fit is no more. We have to blow this thing up.
But we already got a little bit of a sampling last year that Georgiev was high risk. We saw that last year.
Oh, yeah, down the stretch, game one in Winnipeg.
So don't act all of a sudden surprised 29 games in. We're shocked about what's going on with our goaltending situation. You got an inkling of what it could be last year. And so that's your job as a front office, is to be able to look ahead and speculate and maybe look at what happened last year and say, you know what, to think that it's automatically going to be better next year, no problems, and then 29 games in, you're admitting it was such a problem that you make the trade that you did.
Two trades in 10 days.
Two trades that you did. And by the way, we told you several weeks ago that the Avalanche starting playoff goalie and backup was not on the roster yet. So I'm gonna do a little pat on the back here, but while we're giving credit to the Avalanche for making a deal that they had to make, and in the context of a deal that they had to make, making a pretty good deal, let's not gloss over the fact that your job as an organization at maybe the single most important position on the hockey team, you really haven't handled well for the last several years.
Well, and the irony in all this is Georgiev wins his last start in an Avs sweater 2-1. I saw some people say, how can you trade him after? Guys, the trade was probably agreed to in the last 4, 5, 6 days. They were just ironing it out. It doesn't matter what happens against a bad Detroit team. That wasn't going to change anyone's mind. But then Scott Wedgwood goes into New Jersey and gets a shutout. We'll finish on this, Mike. There is a hockey game to be played tonight in Pittsburgh. It will not be Blackwood. McFarland said he's a little under the weather. He's going to come straight to Denver. More Wedgwood tonight. And honestly, I think they probably win, and I think they bag a 4-1 road trip. This team, we've been saying it for a while, they can go on a run. Watch them finally be re-energized, galvanized, go on a run. I think that starts tonight in Pittsburgh.
And is there any chance they can smuggle Sidney Crosby home in an equipment bag?
I'm not opposed.
Huh?
I'm not opposed. Oh, my gosh. Can you
Would that be
imagine?
great?
Maybe that's an episode of Mile High Hockey down the road. We can dream big,
I'm trying to speak it into existence.
We can dream big.
Speak
Sidney
it into
Crosby
existence.
with his good friend Nathan McKinnon in an Avs sweater. Mike, that was fun. Alexandar Georgiev, gone. I'd say it's been fun, but it hasn't been real fun. So
see ya.
No longer our problem. We'll see you Thursday for another episode of Mile High Hockey.